Hello and welcome to this edition of the Mycotoxin Matters podcast, where we are going to take a closer look at the dairy industry with a particular view on Asia and how the different aspects of the industry and the external factors that affect it when we think about climate and the importation of grains have an impact on the mycotoxin profile that we face within the region. Joining me today to chat through this is Dr. Ghazanfar Naseer, who is Alltech's Ruminant and Mycotoxin Technical Manager for Southeast Asia. Gaz, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I think it's a very interesting topic, and it's right time for us to discuss about this because right now the customers are facing a lot of challenges, especially when we talk about the mycotoxin side.
Well, then maybe Gaz, with that, why don't you start by giving us a little bit of an overview of the dairy industry in Asia and how it's structured and functions?
Yes, sure. So dairy industry in Asia exhibits a very diverse and a dynamic structure. We can broadly divide dairy industry in Asia into three key categories. The one could be very small size farm, which are like backyard farming, the family owned small farms, like 2 animals, 3 animals, 5 animals. And then up the hierarchy, there will be medium-sized farms, which will adopt some up-to-date practices, latest research, and new technologies. They will adopt it. And then finally, we will have corporate size, big size farms that will operate at a commercial level. And the key difference among all of these three areas would be the small sized farms are just doing their business for sustainability, for sustaining their life, for having some additional income from the backyard farming. But they play a key role because they are producing a lot of milk, a huge amount of milk that is being coming into the market is produced by these small sized farms. Whereas the medium-sized and large-sized farms, they will be mainly supplying their milk production to either milk processors directly, or they might have their own milk brand in different markets, as different markets are a little bit different in terms of how the milk is processed and sold to the consumers. So it's very key to understand this market structure before we think about how we work with these customers, or how these customers are actually adopting the new technologies and services to improve their productivity. Small site farms are relying mainly for the for keeping the farm alive, for having that side income, whereas the large site farms are more toward the profitability and making sure their production is as maximum as they can get it. So these variables actually we need to keep in mind when we want to work with these customers, because obviously the dynamics are different, the requirements are different, the targets are different for each of these different sections of the industry.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Gaz, to see the diversity across the region when it comes to the different sizes and types of producers. So if you build on that, why are mycotoxins relevant to those different dairy producers across the region?
So yes, so mycotoxins are highly relevant for the dairy producers in Asia, as it ties in with the several critical factors which are required for the dairy farming in the region. One is obviously the increasing milk production. The farmers are looking at improving the milk production. They are looking at improving the milk quality. So having mycotoxins in the feed can significantly impact the production as well as the milk quality. And then the fact that some mycotoxins can go into the milk and then affect on the human health side as well. So that plays a key role in giving the importance of the to the mycotoxins and trying to make sure that we manage the mycotoxins properly. Secondly, as you realize that Asia relies on the import of raw materials globally from different parts of the world, and because of these imported raw materials, the contamination that is coming through these imported raw materials plays a vital role here. Sometimes we don't find certain types of mycotoxins in Asia, but because we are importing raw materials from other countries, so basically along with the raw materials, we're importing some mycotoxins that are produced in those conditions and those environments. And lastly, I think the storage issue locally in Asia plays a key role in terms of mycotoxin increase of mycotoxins, and also the impact on the productivity of the animals. In Asia, most of the countries have high humid and high temperature environment, and that is best for molds to grow. So that even further enhances the ability of molds to increase the mycotoxin levels in the raw material. So I think these factors combine together and help the customers understand the importance of these mycotoxins and how they're affecting on their animals, so they can better manage the mycotoxins.
Gaz, interesting to hear more about some of those key factors. And clearly, as yield increases, then stressors such as mycotoxins are going to play more of a role, potentially negatively impacting that. And then that mix of the imported challenge coming from all the grains that are coming into the region, along with that local challenge from the storage environment, gives that Asian region quite a unique scenario when it comes to mycotoxins. If you then look at climate, does the changing climate have an impact on top of the things you've just mentioned?
Absolutely. I mean, climate change is undeniably affecting the dairy industry in Asia, and it can actually intensify the mycotoxin related challenges along with the production challenges that we are having because of the climate change. Of the rising temperatures and changes in the precipitation patterns can create conditions that are, conducive to the mycotoxin producing molds. Increased humidity, heat stress can also promote the mold growth, but at the same time impact the productivity of the animals in itself as well. So climate change is having a significant impact on the both sides, mycotoxins plus the productivity of the animals as well. Additionally, climate change patterns can impact the forage and grain production as well. So droughts or excessive rainfall can also affect the crop yields and quality of the crops that can potentially lead to the higher mycotoxin levels in the feed as well. So the climate change is not only standalone challenge, but also a factor that can further complicate the mycotoxin management in the dairy farming. At the same time, the productivity and the general stress factor that are coming up on the animals as well. So it definitely is a big factor that is impacting on the animal productivity.
As you're working with customers and looking at analysis across the region, Gaz, from the work that we are doing, what does the data tell us in terms of what the challenge looks like?
Yeah, so it's very interesting when we look at the data related to the mycotoxins and their relevance to the dairy industry in Asia. We observe there are some notable trends that are happening, and there are noticeable shifts that are happening in terms of the mycotoxin profile of the raw materials, particularly over the last 3 years, where we saw bigger impacts on the climate change, and then impact on the crops, and then consequently impacting on the mycotoxin profile. The data that we have from different surveys, especially conducted by Alltech, it provides us a crucial insights into the mycotoxin challenge and mycotoxin landscape of the raw materials. Firstly, according to Alltech's mycotoxin survey, which was conducted in the past 3 years, we have witnessed significant changes in the prevalence, in the levels, as well as in the combination of mycotoxins that are occurring in the raw materials. And this shift can be, attributed to the changes in weather conditions and the broader impact of the climate change as well. And these variations in the climate can influence the types and the quantities of the mycotoxins that are present in the feed, which can further, emphasize the dynamic nature of this challenge of the climate change. And moreover, when we look at some of the trends, we saw a very alarming trend that has emerged from these surveys in a very consistent way, that there is a consistent increase in the levels of emerging mycotoxins. In the latest survey that we did recently, we observed that emerging mycotoxins have not only risen to become the top most commonly encountered mycotoxins in the feed samples tested in Asia, but this highlights the evolving nature of mycotoxins contamination in the dairy industry. These prevalence of these emerging mycotoxins introduces new challenges as we strive to understand the effects on the livestock health and the productivity. So we need to a little bit better understand these emerging mycotoxins. But what we understand as of now from the data is that they are increasing in their levels, and they are continuously increasing. And their presence in the number of samples is increasing as well. They are occurring more and more often in our raw materials. Another important trend that we saw was evident in the presence of the multiple mycotoxins in the samples. From the latest survey that was done in the last 8-9 months, we saw that on an average there were 7 mycotoxins present in each sample. Most prevalently, the topmost was emerging mycotoxins, and then following on to DON, fumonisin, and zearalenone was the most common mycotoxins. But more than 90% of the samples had multiple mycotoxin contamination. And when we look at the risk on the animals, looking at this data, we saw that more than 40% of the samples had moderate to higher level risk for the dairy animals. So we need to look at all of these factors to make sure that how we are managing the mycotoxin, and how we are managing the challenge that our animals are facing. So in short, like, this data tells us the mycotoxin contamination is a multifaceted issue. It is influenced both by the climate factors as well as the emergence of the novel mycotoxin classes. It underscores the critical, need for the continuous monitoring, adaptation, and proactive measures within the dairy industry to effectively, address this challenge and address this challenge of mycotoxins.
Yeah, certainly that emerging mycotoxin piece is important, as well as the multiple mycotoxin piece, because I think clearly what you're saying for Asia and what we are seeing in other parts of the world as well is the prevalence of these groups that primarily come from the Fusarium mold. And so I think particularly in Asia, when there's been such a focus historically on aflatoxin for good reason, the importance, however, of these other mycotoxins is right to raise, because from that cow health and productivity standpoint, they're so key. Gaz, you've put a lot of this information in your blog, which our listeners can find at nomycotoxins.com. Maybe you could share with us as we wrap up just some of your top tips in terms of what you think and advise producers to be doing when it comes to this mycotoxin challenge.
For sure, like, there are so many things that we can do at a farm level, at a feed mill level, but obviously, there are few things that play a vital role in making sure that we are managing that risk. We are making sure that our raw materials are have less contamination. So I would say the first number one would be for me the quality of feed raw material sourcing. So if we ensure that feed ingredients, especially the grains and the forages, are sourced from reputable suppliers who have strict quality control measures in place, this can help you minimize the risk of mycotoxin contaminated raw materials entering into your dairy, entering into your feed. So we can have a good quality control checks at the start to make sure that as minimum mycotoxins enter in our system as possible. Obviously, it's a very, very complex challenge. Any one supplier, any one company, any one part of the whole supply chain cannot tackle that. But and we cannot have. It's very difficult to have like zero mycotoxins. There is no concept of zero mycotoxins. So we need to have strict quality control to make sure that as minimum mycotoxins we have in our system. And then leading on to that, we need to have effective storage practices, implementing proper storage techniques to prevent the mycotoxin development, prevent the mold development, and further on to the reducing the mycotoxins development in our storage conditions. This could include the maintaining the optimal temperature or humidity, using appropriate methods to making silage on the farms to make sure that our silage have a good quality and less mycotoxins in there, and then obviously regularly inspecting the stored feed for any signs of mold growth in there. So we try to minimize the mycotoxins coming in our system, and then we try to make sure whatever is in our system does not go above the limits that we brought in. And then I think one of the key thing here would be regular monitoring and testing. We can only have some targets set. We can only reduce some things when we know where we are today. If we don't know where we are today, we cannot set targets, we cannot reduce that. So having a regular monitoring and testing, establishing a monitoring program to regularly assess the feed and the forages is it would be the key. And when you normally do that, you will have early detection that will allow you for the time, allow you or give you the time to intervene and adjust any feed formulations, reduce some raw materials, include some other raw materials that has less mycotoxin contamination, or like some raw materials might have higher levels of certain mycotoxins that are your animals are less sensitive to. So we might be able to intervene and make some changes over there. Now, speaking of the regular monitoring and testing, I would have share about one of the best tools that we have right now for the dairy producers and for the feed millers is the Alltech Rapid Read system that comes along with the mycotoxin portal. This system offers a rapid and efficient solution for mycotoxin analysis, delivering the results in as little as 15 minutes. So you can test like 6 key mycotoxins within like 15 minutes time. But what the key thing that sets it apart from the industry is that having the ability to put all of this information into a very nicely developed mycotoxin portal. Now, this portal not only provide quick analysis, but at the same time, it gives us or translates the data into actionable insights. It simplifies the complex task of interpreting the very complex mycotoxin data, and it presents to the users, whoever is using that system, in a very user-friendly format, so we can easily understand what is happening in terms of the mycotoxins and what is happening in terms of their trends. So this portal will not only help us understand the level of mycotoxins, their trends, but also help us understand the risk which our animals are facing, and and you might be able to have some predictions that can help you understand how much you might be losing with this level of mycotoxins. So I think utilizing these type of tools, these type of systems, who gives you a better understanding of the information that you are already collecting, can help you actually make quick actions, make right actions at the right time. So utilizing this will be very helpful.
Gaz, fantastic. Thanks very much for all of your insights and sharing a lot of information about the industry in general and the impact that mycotoxins may be playing now and in the future on that industry as it evolves. We look forward to having you back on Mycotoxin Matters in the future to share with us more about how mycotoxins are affecting the Asian ruminant and dairy industry.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today.
We hope you enjoyed listening today and look forward to you joining us next time on the Mycotoxin Matters podcast. For more information on the topics discussed, please visit knowmycotoxins.com. That's KNOW mycotoxins.com.